I have learned over the years that actually being mindful of my clothing color choices is actually important. It's not always sunny in the oceans. Bringing a rain jacket is imperative. Take care of your lips. Okay, so I really want to start first on clothing. There's really three different types of fishing that you're going to do in the saltwater. So when you're starting to pack for your clothing or you're starting to think about like what should you be bringing, really you want to first think, well, how am I going to be fishing? Am I going to be fishing from a boat? Am I going to always be from in a boat? Am I going to be walking the flats? Or am I going to be walking the beach, which is sandy and you can wear flip-flops? So I think it's important, especially if you're going to be walking, such as like Christmas Island, where we walk anywhere from 7 to 10 miles a day, is you want to think about how loose is the clothing that you're going to be wearing. Because if you have really loose pants and you're walking, then you're definitely going to be quite shaped. So thinking about how are you going to be fishing, kind of what is the mode, I think is important when you're starting to think about and pack for your clothing. Now, I do first and foremost want to talk about the sun. I think that it's important to really know the difference between UPF and SPF. So they're actually different. So with UPF, what is it and why does it matter? So ultra protection factor, it indicates how much UV radiation, both A and B, a fabric allows to reach the skin. So if you think about like if you have a UPF of 50, that means it's going to block about 90% of the sun rays. Whereas with SPF, it's actually based on the amount of time that it takes for your skin to be exposed. So UPF, so when you're looking at all of your different clothing, this is something to think about. Also know that a fabric must have a UPF of 30 to qualify for the Skin Cancer Foundation Seal of Recommendation. So when you're going online or you're looking at things, you're looking at manufacturer different websites, make sure that this is what you're looking at. Do they have the seal and is it 30 or above? Because again, so really some interesting things with clothing considerations is color. So dark or bright colors actually keep those UVs from reaching or absorbing your skin. And you're going to hear me say, kind of be mindful of those those brighter colors, especially with fishing. But bright colors actually are better for your skin at the end of the day. Fit. So you really want to think about kind of that loose fitting apparel is better because any tight clothing can actually start to stretch. And then that UV or the UPF is actually could be altered. So again, looking for that seal of recommendation and activity. So really thinking about, regardless of whatever your clothing is rated, the more you move, the more it gets wet, the more it's going to not quite have the UPF that it was actually rated for. So all of these are just things to take into consideration. Now, saltwater clothing, colors. I have learned over the years that actually being mindful of my clothing color choices is actually important. And especially when it comes to saltwater and especially when it comes to New Zealand or very, very selective trout. So when you're, based on wherever you're going, some certain things to think about, kind of consider where you're fishing. So what's the landscape colors? You want to try to blend in. So if you're going to Mexico, the water color is different, the sand color is different, Belize is different. So these are all considerations. This is stuff that you can research ahead of time and just kind of see what colors can you wear to actually blend in. And blending in is important. So this is a great photo, just like a cloud camo with some tights. This is my dad with some kind of a grayish cloud camo. So again, blending in. And then this is in Belize as well. So this is just the flat and he's kind of blending in. Yes, that is kind of a more mild or kind of softer colored shirt, but it has a little bit of pop, but it blends into that. So really what you want to do is think about blending in. And bright colors, just like Amy said with the hip bag that she used, those fish are going to see it. And especially as those fish have been fished to quite a bit, you want to give yourself every chance that you can. And that's one thing that we actually have control of is what we're wearing. Now there's several different types of shirts. So you can wear a shirt that's going to be like a button-up shirt that's going to be a little bit looser. Different companies will make these different shirts. Really what you want to think about is like a quick dry shirt or a quick dry type of material. I prefer like a sun hoodie. I'm all about the hood. I will wear my buff or my face mask or neck tube or whatever it's called, but I love a actual hood. I feel like it gives me more protection on my ears and the sides of my face. So that's my own personal preference. Some don't like it because it kind of gets in the way. So again, this is your own preference, but you can buy solar flex or sun shirts without a hood or with a hood. And then you can buy button-up shirts as well. Tank tops. It's hot out, it's sunny out, and I like to get some sun. So I will kind of alter where I wear a tank top underneath my either sun shirt or my button-up shirt. And I do take off that shirt and I get some sun. So that's, again, your own personal preference, but I just want to just absorb all of that vitamin D. Again, quick dry materials. So we're going to start to talk about some different pants. And so these are my quick dry pants. So these could be hiking pants. This could be whatever brand you want, but just some sort of quick dry pants. And having a pair of pants is very important because if you are, well, obviously it's going to prevent the sun, but also if you start to get sunburned, you can put that over. A lot of times too, when the material gets wet, it's a little bit cooler. And so therefore it might cool you down a little bit as well. Different types of pants though. So you can do like a quick dry pant, full pant. A lot of people wear leggings. I always joke because fish, for those that have done some research, the fish like vision in most fish is they actually have this window. They can't really see down below, but they can see up and higher. So I always am like, all right, I got the party on the bottom and the business up on top. So I usually will wear a shirt that's going to be a little bit more solid. It's going to be softer colors, but sometimes you can get away just because of that angle with a busier pant, if that's something that you want to wear. Also thinking about your height. So if you're on top of the boat and you're waiting, you're looking and searching, you're up higher. So those fish actually can see you more. So for me, I'm 5'1", so I have a bit of an advantage. So the fish aren't as likely to see me as my dad that's 6'3", just kind of thinking about that. So we have our quick dry pants, we have our leggings, and then a shorts or a skirts. I wear skirts almost the whole entire time. Usually I'll wear like a pair of quick dry underwear or my swimsuit under it because I get hot and I'll just jump in the water as well. If I do wear shorts or skirts, I always carry a pair of pants in my bag, always. And I also carry a towel. So that way, if my legs are starting to get burned, I can just put something over them. Now, if I'm walking wading in Christmas Island and I know that there's a lot of coral, there is a chance that I might fall. I could get injured in the coral, or I'm going to be in the water and that reflection of the water is going to be continually on my legs. I will wear pants the entire time. So again, it's all dependent on, are you boat fishing? Are you walking the flats? Are you walking just the beach? And these are all just things for you to consider. It's not always sunny in the ocean. So bringing a rain jacket is imperative, as well as bringing a puffy. So I can't tell you how many times I've gone to Florida. Every time I've gone to Florida, I've worn my puffy and my rain jacket. It gets cold, and especially with the humidity, so you have that moisture in the air, it gets cold. So bringing a rain jacket is a must, and sometimes even rain pants. So this is my husband and I in Christmas Island. So we're completely it looks like we're fishing in the Pacific Northwest in the spring right here. And I actually did get cold. So bringing that rain jacket is important. Having some sort of face or ear protection. So Heidi are very similar in our look here, but having a hat. And again, she likes the button-up shirts. I prefer the sun hoodie. I prefer the hoodie or the sun solar flex with a hoodie. So we have covered your shirts, your pants, your face. Really want to protect your hands. This is Kevin, my guide. He helped. Well, I didn't set the hook hard enough on my tarpon. So he set the hook for me and the tarpon ran and he burned his fingers. So you really want to protect your hands, right? So thinking about blisters, line wounds. So wearing a pair of gloves or some sort of a stripping finger or the wrap we call it Coban at the hospital, where you can wrap a couple of fingers. I actually prefer gloves. I wear gloves. I like it with an open palm so I can really feel the rod when I'm casting, and then I can strip, and I'm not going to get as much, I'm just going to protect my fingers. Now, I will say that there are some manufacturers. For me, I have pretty small hands. So look for manufacturers that have sun gloves that are an extra small, or go into a local fly shop if you're lucky enough to have something close to you and just try stuff on. And then try it on and hold on to your rod too. Make sure that those gloves fit well. Most of them are going to have a UPF, so they're going to be sun protecting as well. But you'll a lot of times have a tan, or you'll be mindful of putting some sort of sunscreen on your tips of your fingers, because whatever's showing is going to get some sun. So thinking about hat, for me, for a 6-day trip, I'll probably bring about 10 to 12 different hats, just because that's who I am. I actually choose the hat I'm going to use, and then I choose my outfit. I take full ownership of that. But really, when you're thinking about your hat, having a darker brim is going to be better. So it's going to take away some of that glare. So when you're purchasing a hat or you're bringing a hat, really think about the bottom, that it's going to be darker. That's going to help. And shoes. So really, again, you're considering, are you going to be in a boat all the time? Are you going to be walking, wading, or are you going to be just on a beach where you can wear flip-flops? So really knowing that, and usually if wherever you're going, you'll have a checklist, or if you're doing some research, you'll see that. Christmas Island, you need real flats boots. Shimano actually makes kind of like a flats boat shoe. This is my dad in Belize, and he wore this the whole time. You can buy other types of shoes as well. Most of the boots that I could find information on, Sims and Orvis. So the free salt boot goes from size 5 to 15. And then the Orvis, the CXI booty, that goes from 5 to 14. What happens if you wear a size smaller than a size 5, or let's say you have kids with you as well? So there's other different things that you can wear. As Amy mentioned, Converse can be really good. They do have a sole. They protect your ankles, and they're not going to scuff the boat. So really, when you're on that boat and you are wearing shoes, you want to make sure that you have soles that aren't going to be scuffing the platform of the boat. These extra tufts are great also. Some people wear Crocs, like in Belize or in Cuba. Individuals will put on Crocs and they'll walk the flats, and then they'll come back onto the boat, or just flip-flops. Knowing where you're going to be fishing. When I was in Belize, I got out and walk and waded 3 times, and I just wore flip-flops. So again, just knowing where you're going to be and how much walking you're going to be doing will be important, and kind of determine this for you. Having some sort of wading sock. So they actually make like a neoprene wading sock. They also make wet wading socks that go in. The one thing I would suggest is, especially if you're going to be going somewhere like Christmas Island, you're going to be hiking 7 miles a day, make sure that you break in those boots and wear them with the socks as well. Maybe go to the river, get them wet, and just walk around. And so then it'll toughen up your feet a little bit, and just make sure that you're getting blisters or any of that. Also, I always say fear no fruit. So these are bananas. There's a whole story about having bananas on the boat. Having a pair of cotton socks it can be a great thing to just add into your boat bag, because if you do have the big flies that are coming around, or if your feet are starting to get swollen, or if you're starting to get sunburned, putting on a pair of socks is good. Plus, if that platform is really hot, it'll actually help with that as well. So having a pair of socks is a good thing.
Also, if the bugs are eating you.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And compression socks. I cannot talk more about compression socks. So, because who's gone from climate into a more humid climate, and all of a sudden you were in the plane and you can't see your ankles anymore. So really recommended to wear compression socks, especially when you go from drier, not as hot climate, and wear them on the plane into the climate. I actually wear my compression socks every night, and I drink a ton of water. So those are a couple ways that it'll actually help prevent the swelling, but compression socks are an absolute must. Plus you're preventing DVTs, which is a deep vein thrombosis, which is a blood clot. So you could be saving your life as well. No heart attacks, strokes, or clots in your lungs. So compression socks are very important. Plus you can get them very inexpensive, maybe 20, 30 bucks a pair, but it's worth it. And support the girls. So, we've all been in boats, and most of the time it's windy and it's choppy, and we need to protect our girls, not our friends, because they need a little love too, but we need to protect our girls. So we're in a sports bra. Some of us, unfortunately, have to wear 2 sports bras to protect the girls, but just having something that it's more secure, really thinking about not having cotton, right? And so just something, or you can have a really good swimsuit as well. They make Athleta or Title IX makes good swimsuits for my size. So just supporting the girls is important, just for the boat ride, really. And making sure that you take any of that glide. I always put it under my arms. I put it under my straps. I put it everywhere, because again, if you're wearing a tank top or you're wearing a swimsuit and you're casting, right, there's a little chance for some rubbing. So just utilizing that glide is important too.
I wear it on my toes when I'm doing a lot of wading.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Toes don't get blistered.
It's like that protective layer. So it's not going to hurt, and it just washes off. So swimsuits. So, like this is in Mexico in December, and my friend and I fishing, and we were fishing in our swimsuits. Now, being mindful that it's not too windy. So you then get off the straight line path, and then all of a sudden you get the fly in your butt. So there's something to think about, but it's okay to wear a swimsuit. if that's what you choose, it's okay. So know that it's not always warm when you're saltwater fishing. So this is in New Orleans, or actually south. This is in Louisiana, redfish fishing. I mean, we have guide jackets, we have puffies, we have all kinds of things. So it's not always warm when you're salt fishing. So again, this is something that wherever your destination is, just to think about. But I always bring a rain jacket, and I always bring a little bit thicker of a long sleeve jacket as well. Puget Sound or some of the kind of Western United States, our oceans are really cold. Here, we're actually fishing for sea and cutthroat and waders. So again, this is all based on wherever you're fishing, kind of what is your climate going to be? And we wear waders in the Puget Sound year round. And same would be for like beach fishing. If you want to go, perch fishing or whatever on the Oregon coast or whatever it might be, you might be wearing waders. So again, just thinking about that. Now, if you are wearing waders, you want to really any of your gear, you're going to wash it with fresh water. So that's really important to wash all of your gear, including your clothing, with fresh water. Some additional tips: take care of your lips. I cannot reiterate this. The first day I have these big, beautiful, kind of swollen lips, and then this like day 4. And my mistake was I bought sunscreen, or I bought lip balm that didn't have sunscreen in it, and I didn't even think about it. So take care of your lip. Cover your legs, as I mentioned. So use your buff, cover your thighs, bring a towel. Always bring a pair of pants with you in the boat bag. Always bring lots of sunscreen and coral, making sure that it's reef friendly. And you can actually look on the actual bottle. It'll say if it's reef friendly. So again, just being, conservation minded and just environmentally friendly. Laundry. So there's a lot of places that you go that they actually do offer laundry. I would say utilize that. A lot of times it's not very expensive, but then you only have to bring a couple outfits. So if I am going to be fishing for 6 days, I usually bring just three like outfits, and I just rotate them through. So I wear the same thing twice. And maybe I'll have a different hat because, I bring 10 to 12 hats, but just making sure that you are rotating through. And then therefore then you have a little more weight that you can put more gear in, or snacks or something. And again, wash your gear. So you want to wash all of your gear with fresh water every single night. And this, especially if you're wearing waders, you want to wash your waders, you want to wash your boots, all of that as well. I use packing cubes. I love packing cubes. I'll actually set it up to where it's in my lodge wear, is in my fishing wear, all of that. Plus, it's a place that you can put all your dirty clothes in, so then you can wash them. I would definitely suggest to make sure that you do open up your suitcase when you get home and not wait a week, because a lot of that moisture can cause, different things to grow. But packing cubes can be a great way to just kind of keep things organized. And this is just another visual too of like what my suitcase looks like. Sunglasses, I always check my pliers. I always bring a couple extra fly lines as well, just because, especially if I'm coral reef fishing or if I'm trigger fishing. Some of you probably, hopefully, have experienced this, but those triggers like to go in their homes, and then your entire line is broke. Bring a pair of normal tennis shoes too, just so I can walk, and or just something good on my feet if they're swollen and or sunburned. And again, for 6 days of fishing, I usually bring 3 outfits, and I wear them twice. And that's without laundry. And I always bring casual lounge clothes, a couple rompers, a dress, a pair of shorts, whatever it might be. It's just whatever you're comfortable in. And thinking again about the bugs, if I'm with Amy, I know I don't have to wear barely any clothes because all the bugs are going to eat her. Thinking about those leggings are going to be tied around the ankles, so then I'm not going to have all the bugs coming up on my thighs or my legs as well. So that's kind of just the beginning intro to the clothing.
Hey everyone, my name is Kathleen. I'm going to be talking about how I prepared for my Belize trip, kind of what I did when I was there. My 6th year of fly fishing, and last year was the first time I went to Belize. So there were definitely a lot of first times when it comes to fly fishing last year. Straight Arrow Tight Lines is a company that I started. It's a small company where I started making fishing stickers for just like little quirky things. And there's a blog on there where I write up about my experience fly fishing. I do have a little bit of write up about my Belize trip on that website as well. So if you guys have time, feel free to check it out. So believe it or not, it's easy. This is my write up for my Belize trip. A lot of this is kind of a mix. I did a couple of days of fly fishing, but I also got to see a lot of what Belize had to offer. So it kind of broke up my trip there. And this is actually me. We were ziplining through the forest, and it was funny because there was a river that was running through there. And my instant thought was like, can I fish it? So I had to ask my guide if I can, but he said they only have those aquarium of fish there. So the flies I brought were too big for that river. Like I said, I've only been fishing for 6 years, and this is my first saltwater trip outside of the United States. I didn't do a group thing. It was for 2 days on the boat. I was the only person fishing. The second day, though, my sister came with me, but she was more of like an island hopper, photographer type of thing. So, I mean, I asked her if she wanted to fish. She was more interested with the corals and all the stuff that's happening underwater. What I did before my trip, I obviously hit my local fly shop. A lot of the local fly shops, since they set up international trips, saltwater trips, they'll have a lot of saltwater fly fishing information. I am lucky enough to have the fisherman's spot super close to where I live, and a lot of them do go out fly fishing in the saltwater overseas. So they give me a lot of information, and they also help me pick out my reel and my rod, which, when you have so much choices to choose from, it's like, where do you start, right? So they helped me with that, and it was really great with all the information. They also help with some of the fly selections. The second thing is calling up the guide company. I mean, especially in Belize, I mean, they know the times, they have all the information that you need. And sometimes they'll even give you a printout of what rods, what reels to use, what size, what flies that they suggest and recommend. And a lot of it too, it can get a little intimidating, but talking to them kind of guide you where to go or where to start. And then they can also They can also let you know what like the good times to go. For my trip in Belize, it was a family trip. So I was kind of in the mercy of what the dates that were picked up. I was lucky enough that the guide service, which I think I used Blue Horizon, and they set me up on the 2 dates that I was able to go and help me out with that. So the other thing too is when I went in May, they had a storm. So we weren't able to go out to the lagoons, to the deeper waters the first day. It was super windy. So like Heather said, bring a rain jacket or something that will protect you from wind and rain. Because at some point it was like raining in Belize, and they had a tropical storm for that whole week as well. Luckily enough, it was so windy that I didn't have issues with the mosquitoes until the last day. So there's always, a light at the end of the tunnel. So the flies, you can buy them. Orvis has some. Your local fly shop will probably have some too, especially if they do international saltwater trips or just saltwater trips in general. If you are an avid fly tyer, tie them. I mean, you could tie minnow clousers, like bonefish bitters. They look complicated, but when I start tying them, they're actually not that bad. For the gear, with Heather and Amy's presentation, that's very important to have a gear, like you have clothing that will protect you from the sun, because you're going to be walking out in the sun. For my particular trip to Belize, I was only out in the flats 2 times, and I was on the boat for the rest of the times. So I had my scuba diving boots that have soles on them, luckily, and they worked great when I was out in the flats, as you see on this picture. But if you need a little bit more ankle support, definitely get those flat boots, because they're more rigid than the scuba diving boots. Line, rod, reel, they're completely optional if you don't have the money to purchase those. I was fortunate enough to have a little bit of some to spare to purchase mine, but you don't have to, because the saltwater trips can get expensive already, and setting up a new setup can be equally so. So if you don't have the money to purchase it, you don't have to, because the guide will provide for some of that stuff. But if you're like me, I love to use my own stuff. I love to use my own reel because I'm used to the weight. I love to use my own rod because I'm used to casting it. But yeah, having if you're gonna do that, definitely have an extra line and extra spool to cut some of the. Buying an extra spool can cut some of the costs too if you already have those big reels. Read up on your destination. I mean, I cannot emphasize this enough. I mean, I scoured the internet for all the articles I could find about Belize. The only thing I knew about it is that it has some really good scuba diving spots, because my sister and I are both scuba divers, but I did not know that much fishing information about it. I mean, this is how my conversation with my sister went. She's like, let's go to Tulum, Mexico. And I was like, I don't really see fly fishing stuff there. Let's go to Belize instead, because it's cheaper. So that's me said. And I didn't know, like, I hear it all the time, but I've never really had that information. But read up on your destination. That prepares you for all the fishing species that you can target. It tells you all how those species that you want to target act like. So for example, permits can be super finicky, especially if they're eating by themselves, and you're going to be casting in the direction of where they're headed. So you could be casting 1 second at 10 o'clock, and then a second later you're casting at 12 o'clock, and then you're picking it up 40 feet out. You're casting it on your 2 o'clock. Versus a tarpon where you target the rings, and it's just a matter of like setting your line and not setting it too soon when they hit it. So knowing how those species act can help you how to fish for them. You have to like practice. This is another thing that I cannot emphasize enough. because if you're going to a saltwater trip and you're used to casting a 2-weight rod, a 5-weight rod, you're going to be sorely disappointed when you go there and you're going to be casting an 8-weight rod minimum, because your body or your casting arms, they're not going to be used to that weight. Luckily in Los Angeles, we get some really, really bad Santa Ana winds. So I got to cast in the wind. And in the picture above, I mean, it was supposed to be a video, but I was like casting against the wind, trying to fight just to get used to casting, cutting through that wind. Helped me a lot when I was actually in Belize. And like I said earlier, when we were there was a bunch of tropical storms coming in and it was super windy. And I had 2 days to like just cast into the wind, because casting in the wind, you could be a great fly caster in perfect conditions. But if you can't cast in the wind, you can't double haul, you're not going to be able to shoot the line that you need to go cut through that wind. So I saw a question that says, how important is double hauling? It is really important when it's super windy, because it gives that line a momentum to cut through that wind, especially if it's like blowing towards you, or to cast through the wind in the distance. When there's no wind, I am able to cast with just a single haul. But unfortunately in Belize, when there's no wind, typically means the fish are not going to be eating, because that water, especially when you're in the lagoon area, that water is not going to be moving. So they almost go into some sort of stasis where the water isn't moving, so the food isn't going to them, so they're not biting. And that could totally end your day. Knowing how to cast too can prevent, those giant flies from hitting you in the head, hitting you in like all the places you don't want to be hit on. I've had a few battles with my flies hitting my ear, hitting my head during my trip to Belize. And experience saltwater fly fishing, those barbel eyes don't feel good once they hit you on the face or anywhere else. Practice with a partner. One thing that the fly fishing shop told me was to have someone tell you to pick up your line and cast. And that helped a lot, because most often than not, a lot of those fish, they're not stagnant. They move, right? Permit is notorious for doing that. I only had 2 shots on permit on my trip, and it was just like miserable. I was casting 40, 60 feet out, and I had to pick 30 to 40 feet of line out of the water with the direction of my guide and cast it towards where the permit is going. Because your guide knows, they can read the fish like the back of their hand. They know where that fish is going. So they tell you to pick up your line and cast it at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or however the guides tell you the direction. And having someone to help you with that, so they can randomize where you can cast, helps a lot too. With my first experience with saltwater fishing is that the distance does matter, because sometimes the boat can only go so far before spooking the fish. Being able to be comfortable casting for 50 plus feet is going to help you to be successful when you go to doing your first trip out in the saltwater flats. And I have had stories where guides tell me that people will come in, hire them. They'll come in with like these $1,000 rods and gear and don't know how to use them. I would suggest that before you go out there, just make sure to get used to your rods as well. And that's where the practice comes in. If you go and target bigger fish, a good friend told me that practice with a lighter weight rod, like an 8-weight rod, and working on your distance casting and your double haul can save you from the wear and tear with your casting arm. Because I started with casting my 11 weight rod, which is a lot heavier than an 8 weight, with a 12 weight reel, you can get tired pretty easily casting that big of setup. So if you're going to practice a lot, I do suggest practicing with a lighter weight rod. 8 weight, if you have a 7 weight works out too. You getting used to those heavier set rods can get you ready, because you need that muscle to haul all that 60 to 100 feet of line out, as well as your longer, bigger rod and your bigger reel. Also, the other thing too is if you have access to a beach, like a saltwater beach, go there. I mean, it puts you on a mentality of doing blind casting and being in that similar kind of situation where sometimes, there's a little bit of waves and you kind of have to get your stuff, like your line management and all that stuff, and get you better prepared for when you go to some of these saltwater fly fishing destinations.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Amy, for your time and sharing your experiences. I think that's so great for the community to just learn more. So thank you both so much.